Episode 18. Enter their spirit. One of the greatest sources of frustration and feelings of being misunderstood in our lives stems from the stubborn walls others often seem to have erected around themselves. No matter how much we try to get through to them, explain our perspective, or change their mind, we're met with psychic resistance, a refusal to be moved from their entrenched ideas, biases, and subjective reality. It's as if we're beating our head against a brick wall of egoism. However, rather than resigning ourselves to butting heads in a fruitless battle of egos, the seducer understands there is an artful solution. As Robert Greene explains in his insightful book, The Art of Seduction, the answer lies in the subtle tactic of entering their spirit. The narcissist mirrors. Greene's opening premise is that we are all narcissists to the core, just expressing it through different avenues as we age. As children, our narcissism is openly physical, obsessively studying our own body, image in the mirror, etc. In adulthood, the narcissism turns more psychological as we become absorbed in our own personal tastes, opinions, beliefs, judgments, and the unique experiences that make up our subjective worldview. Like formed bedrock, this dense layering of biases and perspectives builds up a hardened outer shell around each of us where we reside, firmly locked in our own spirit and reality. The only way to truly lure someone out of this spirit prison, Greene teaches, is through the powers of hypnotic mirroring. You must become their psychological clone, a perfectly attuned mirror image. Study their moods, attitudes, tastes, emotional vulnerabilities. Then reflect those same things through your mask of mirroring. Adapt your tone, body language, interests, environment, and personality to seamlessly match theirs. Go so far as to actively indulge their every passing whim, desire, or fancy, giving them the intoxicating experience of their spirit being flawlessly understood and embraced. You are their nodding approval, their ego's perfect doppelganger. In being confronted by such an experience of having their deepest narcissistic tendencies soothed and stroked, their hardened exterior shell has no defense. They are hypnotized by their own mirrored reflection, the validating double they've unconsciously longed for staring back at them through your artful lure. With their inner walls melted away, you can begin to lull them under your spell, slowly and invisibly guiding them into your perspective and away from their former entrenchment. Masters of the other side. The greatest seducers and charmers throughout history seem to wield an almost mystical ability to enter the spirit of the opposite sex. From Casanova to the famously seductive JFK, these iconic male figures commonly grew up heavily surrounded by women and had somewhat feminine qualities themselves that allowed them to transcend the usual division and distrust between the genders. On the seductress side, the fearsome beauties like Cleopatra and Ninon de l'Enclos possessed certain intensely masculine philosophical, intellectual, and behavioral traits that inevitably disarmed and intrigued the male psyche. They could shift between the spirit worlds, leading men into realms they'd never experienced. To become a true master of entering someone's spirit, whether of the same or opposite sex, requires deeply studying and knowing the psychological framework and common emotional vulnerabilities of the other side. Make it your humble mission to deeply understand the inner spirit of those you aspire to seduce. Resurrecting their lost ideal. An extremely powerful addition to the mirroring seduction is to go beyond simply reflecting the person's current persona and actually resurrecting the buried spirit of the ideal self they've longed to become, but began to abandon over the passing years. We each carry some level of deep disappointment that we were unable to fully live up to our youthful romantic ideals, unrealized ambitions, lofty aspirations. Like a discarded shadow self, this spirit of the idealized person we dreamed of being remains clung to us in potential, however suppressed. The master seducer develops a keen, perceptive ability to sense the crushed fantasies of their target spirit, then brings them revivingly back to life through expert mirroring of that lost ideal identity. You give them the experience of inhabiting the very romantic notion, the heroic vision they've eternally ached to express. In this way, seducers like the French writer Chateaubriand could reawaken in women the exciting, idealized notions of love and romance they cherished as young girls, but gradually gave up on. In his presence, they were allowed to momentarily become that perfect romantic heroine again, bathed in their spirit's long-abandoned dream. Inhabiting their deepest selves. Beyond romancing their lost ideal, you can aim to mirror and resurrect their deepest authentic sense of self, who they perceive as their true inner spirit and identity before the weight of life's demands and expectations altered their expected trajectory. We all carry a profound sense of having been forced to compromise at some stage, betraying some sacred kernel of our spirit's calling. Bring that buried essence revivingly back to life for them through your attuned, validating mirroring. Looking back on their lives from the twilight years, many of history's icons spoke of feeling as though they finally became the person they always started out to be. You have the lustrous power to give someone that transcendent experience of embodying their deepest self while still in their unfolding journey. Within the lulling mirror you create, they can reunite with the long-abandoned spirit they've permanently ached to re-become. Few seductions could be more deeply affecting. Takeaway scenarios. How great seducers are able to momentarily subsume their own identity and mirror the spirit, moods, and ideals of their target to bypass their defenses. By employing astute observation and narcissistic mirroring, you can strategically appeal to someone's self-obsession and make them feel you have already gained entry into their inner world. For example, if you detect someone longs for a more romantic, creative lifestyle outside of their corporate job, you could say, "You know, I was just reading this anthology of romantic poetry last night." Pull out a book of Wordsworth. Those lines about feeling the mighty power of loneliness really spoke to me, and my desire to escape this office grind for a simpler life. Reawakening their youthful idealistic visions in this way is extremely seductive. As a man trying to seduce a woman, you could subtly adopt feminine qualities like being an attentive listener and showing vulnerability. Keep your voice soft as you compliment her aesthetic taste. "I love how you paired that vintage dress with those boots. You have a great eye." This counters her typical fear of male aggression. If your target expresses frustration about a work situation, indulge that mood by saying, "That's totally understandable to be stressed. I get so nervous before any public speaking too." What calms you down usually? A glass of wine? Want to split a bottle? Then seamlessly mirror any shifts to being playful. For an outsider trying to seduce someone, immerse yourself in their local customs and culture. Learn key phrases in their language. "I've been practicing. Can you help me with my pronunciation of?" Order the regional food and wine while discussing upcoming local events you want to experience. Finally, focus intense attention on small, unique details about them to demonstrate how deeply you've studied their spirit. "I noticed you got your hair trimmed recently. The layers really bring out those auburn highlights." "No way. You're a Radiohead fan too? What did you think of the orchestral reworkings on that last album?" The more bespoke and intimate the observations, the more convincing your mirroring efforts become. You must maintain an underlying sense of self to eventually reverse the dynamic. But initially, depict yourself as a profoundly attuned mirror image of their spirit to transcend their usual defensive barriers. The critical reversal. As intoxicating as the effects of the mirroring seduction are, they can only work for so long before sating their purpose. If taken too far into Never Never Land, the seducer becomes all looking glass without any sovereign dimension of their own. The target inevitably senses the dependence and lack of substance beneath the chameleon act and revolts against feeling toyed with. The key is that the mirroring must eventually be reversed, with the gravity pulling the other person into your reality, rather than the dynamic growing stale through your perpetual sojourn in theirs. Just as you shape-shifted yourself into their spiritual mirror as the opening lure, you must have a strong core identity prepared to spin them into your world once their shell has dissolved. Glimpse your own substantive spirit in snippets early on, then steadily increase their immersion into the depths of your personal perspective, values, and vision of reality. They've been pulled from the one-dimensional mirror into a richly multi-dimensioned world from which there is no re-emerging the same. The awakened souls of both of you dance together, intertwined in a unified spirit world at last, bonded through the sublime artistic process of psychological seduction. Timeless power can be wielded by those who masterfully learn the art of entering their spirit. Now, something important. Make it a daily habit to learn something truly beneficial that enhances your life. Remember, the content you feed your mind is like nourishment for your brain. Be deliberate in your choices. Otherwise, be wary. Algorithms are often crafted to manipulate your thoughts. Reflect on that. Now, we're excited to announce that we're now welcoming contributions through subscriptions to aid our upcoming projects and bring you exceptional content. Join us by subscribing today.